Folks and friends, family, fans and followers, thank you so much for tuning in to this podcast. This is Broke to Woke. This is Britnie Turner. I'm Jeremy Newsom. If you're listening or watching, we really appreciate your time, energy, and devotion. In this particular episode, I'm going to be asking Britnie about how she revitalizes communities and what creative ways she goes in, sees a vision, and paints it and turns it from here into a canvas of perfection like Picasso. It's amazing. Stay tuned and watch the entire thing. Snapdragons, we're back in the building. We're getting some life action, some goals, getting some things planned out. I'm talking to one of my biggest fans, people I love the most in this world, Britnie Faith Turner. All right, we left off with you kind of talking about the revitalization of communities, going through and really helping, bringing what you learned in Africa over to the States, even though while you're over there, you're thinking, I'm not valuable, I'm not good, I don't know anything, but boom, turns out you knew all you need to know to help the communities over there. Do you start building new businesses? What does this transformation happen while you're now revitalizing communities?
I think the lesson I learned in that Africa experience is never curse the journey. You know, if your heart is set on your mission, which for me was elevating people and places and being able to wipe out poverty and human trafficking at its root, I didn't realize that my journey I was on was actually going to give me the answer to solve that problem. I think a lot of people get stuck on the how, exactly how. And I want to challenge all of you to write your vision out, surrender the plan, know that taking the best step you possibly can every day with that clarity of your vision of the long-term future, it's going to unfold in ways that you never could have imagined before. And for me, going over there and seeing that my skills were the gift to be able to actually do this was amazing, surprising, and really built up my faith in life. Yeah. So I came back to the U.S. and I'm practicing, again, accelerating positive transformation so that I can do it in worse and worse areas. Okay. And so I can eventually get to doing this overseas again. But you got to learn. You know, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time, like we said, and practicing is good before you just move 36 hours away of flying with no resources. So we'd pick these areas, and we found some different larger pieces of land that were pretty empty, and it was still in the urban core, and it was really fun to be able to design developments, to own enough land to have a theme. And we talked about in the last podcast that we would design the first health and wellness community in Nashville. But then I started getting more land and saying, okay, I was pretty profound, you know. I walk in this just genius wisdom from above. And my source of finding this wisdom was Google, what are the top problems in Nashville, Tennessee?
No way.
Literally, that's all we did.
Oh my gosh.
What are the top issues? And then we were just like, all right, how can this development solve those problems?
That's amazing.
If we're going to affect what people live in, exist in, and what their mind is going to think about by the way we design things, then how can we possibly solve those issues? And so Google pops up a list. There's 5 things. We find a way to creatively integrate them into the project. So, for example, we're running low on affordable housing. Why? Nashville's not evil. The developers aren't evil. There's no government programs. There's hardly any. I mean, there really hasn't been for years, like other, states and cities. There's a lot more programs in other cities. I mean, I really think Nashville's one of the farthest behind in this. And so it's a struggle because normally either you build a really crappy development, you can't have any nice finishes, or you have a government grant or program offset your cost. Those are really your options, or you cut the legs off of the previous owner in buying it. So it's a very tough thing to do. And so we found a way without any government grants to be able to create affordable housing by creatively designing a project. And so we found ways to be able to attract artists so that we wouldn't lose our artist economy here in Nashville. And I'll have to show you this development. It's called North Lights in North Nashville.
Well, tell me about it. So when you said creative, what are you doing when you're creative?
So for example, instead of over designing the outside of the building and putting stone or wood and like really over beautifying the outside of the building, we can use less expensive materials and spend our money on the artists.
Okay.
And so the entire development is nothing but murals. So it's just this amazing mural, and you spend money on lights versus like more finishes. And so there's a way to glow it up and have this really cool experience, again, attracting artists, but it's a less expensive building product. Still quality, it still works, it's not going to fall down.
Yeah.
But there's a way to shift cost to be able to keep it lower, to be able to keep it affordable.
You know what your Google questions reminded me of?
Yeah.
I had a story of
profound wisdom from above.
That's what I meant to say. It reminded me of a story. I have a friend who's a cellist, and he has a few Grammys randomly. Mm-hmm. And he was talking to me about music, and he said, you know how Mozart probably ended up finishing, or Beethoven ended up finishing some of his symphonies?
How?
Like, how? He's like, procrastination. He waited until the last second, got real hammered, had to turn it in, and just went at it. Because a lot of people think when they see something grandiose, like this perfect work of art, they're like, this person spent hours perfecting it, and they were so genius, and they were thinking through all this incredibleness. And when he told me that, Beethoven's just a normal person, man. Like he sat down and probably procrastinated, finally finished it at the very last minute and turned it into the person he needed to turn it into. I was like, wow, that's incredible. Because sometimes you got to realize that it doesn't have to be this majestic unicorn.
Right.
Sometimes it can be like me. I Googled silver socks to buy.
No, I love that story.
And then you Googled, what the changes to make in Nashville.
Top issues
that are right here.
Let's find a way to solve them.
Which ones did you end up solving, or which ones did you end up attacking?
So we've worked on, again, the health and wellness, the need for green building, transportation-centered development. Okay. And then we've got the affordable housing and keeping that artisan community around. So it's been really fun. Yeah. And then we've also had a lot of different programs go out on education so that people can pull themselves up financially.
Did you have to hire someone at like a company or a team or a consultant to help you with the ideas of all that?
No, I couldn't find anybody that thought like this. What? And it was so weird because everybody just, how many buildings can you shove on a lot? And I said, before you do that, what I've learned is the most frustrating thing for me starting out was I had so many people say, I've been doing this longer than you've been alive.
I don't mean to laugh so hard, but I've heard that
so many times. And I'm like, then how are you still missing this?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I was like confident even thinking that. So again, always questioning, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong? But understand that you may be given a gift of seeing something that's never been seen before.
Bingo.
Same world, new way of doing it. Yeah. And now it's a cool word by saying disrupting. That wasn't cool when I was starting out. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a thing. And so being confident in saying, let's do the same thing you've done longer than I've been alive with different filters. Yeah. Here are the filters in which you can now go do your expertise. But I would have to confidently create those. And for us, it's, does this elevate people and places? Does this create positive transformation? Yeah. Does this honor what's come before? So we won't go destroy a bunch of historic houses, for example. Sure. Does this make the planet greener? So we're not just destroying all the trees. So on East Greenway Park, I had to make $1 million decision. I would have been $1 million more profitable if I tore down all the trees. But do you tear down all the trees? And people won't pay more for the houses necessarily if the old trees are there. You can plant new ones. Yeah. But the site work, just easier to just kill them all.
It's definitely easier.
It's easier, faster. Project would have gone faster, and
you didn't do it.
I did not do it. I built all of the houses around the trees, looking at the trees, so they're like in their own little jungle in this amazing East Nashville neighborhood. And again, you're stupid. Nobody cares. You're a tree hugger. Blah blah blah.
So just to make sure, you left $1 million on the table. Mm-hmm. And could have made $1 million more.
And my investors' money too. That's the thing. When you have investors, you have to make those kind of decisions for them. And I can't stress enough how important it is that you get values-aligned investors. Yeah. When you're new.
Thanks for bringing that up.
And stressed and trying to just survive and make money, you have to really figure out you're never going to be everything to everybody. So what are the most important things to you when you're leaving $1 million on the table, which million do you leave?
Yeah, yes.
And making sure your investors, I've had some just greed-centered people who don't care.
Yeah.
They don't live in the neighborhood.
Yep.
They're not here for the legacy. They just want to make a greater return, and they will fight you when you're making decisions like this. So you just have to. I like telling people to put it in their brand, like you talk about the things you care about in your Instagram and your social media and your website, because then you're more likely to attract those people and weed out the junk.
Right.
So if you take a picture of a tree and talk about the importance of why you kept that tree, for example, you'll deflect some of the junk from coming your way versus like, look how much money I made on this house.
Yeah.
You're going to attract some different investor than just
bingo.
Look at the beautiful tree that we saved.
Bingo.
so
it's a really, really good takeaway, honestly.
It's a big deal.
I don't want to gloss over that because when you're talking about getting aligned investors, a lot of the people listening to this podcast hopefully are either real estate investors or they want to invest with you and I on a project or something to that extent. But bottom line, same thing with me, like with my clients that I work with and the traders that I work with, I don't work with penny stocks. It's just not my world. And you've seen a lot of my material. I don't promote money. It's not about the money. I don't really, every now and then we'll say, hey, this person did, they renovated their home or they bought a vacation for their family or they're taking a trip with a cruise of their whole, generational families. And that's exciting to me. But the money is just not personally my thing. It doesn't really drive me. But penny stocks also really low volume, really weedy, sketchy companies. I just don't play around with those things. I like to play around with the big boys and just make money with the big trades. But again, that's a huge point because as an investor, you need to make sure people know you'll get a return on your money.
Yes.
It might not be as much of a return as you could have get if you go with this person, and you need to know that, but I will be protecting these things. These are the values I'm going to uphold, and these are the sacrifices, and these are the goals that I will not step over.
Right. And that can be very hard to sell people on, and it's interesting when they say their values aligned, and then when it comes to making that decision, well, does it really matter? We can plant some trees.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And am I evil I did tear down some to build any of the houses, but we saved all the big ones.
Yeah.
And so what's really cool, and I've never had this not work out, and I've taken what you would call some pretty big risks. So I left the $1 million on the table. This is what that neighborhood has ever sold for. We've got a mixed income neighborhood that we designed that way. We could have made so much more money if we just did all high dollar houses. But I wanted different people to be able to afford there without a government grant. Again, getting creative.
Sure.
And we ended up being about double more profitable because we left those trees. You could never put it on a pro forma. You can't prove it was going to happen, but what ended up happening to that neighborhood and the people living there and the desire for people to want to be part of something that's special.
The thing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to talk your accountant into it because they're just going to, it doesn't work. And you're like,
but these are the numbers.
I know it will.
2 times 8.
I don't know how to tell you exactly, but I know it will. There is a human element, and I want you, when you're running your numbers on any real estate deal, I want you to think about it as a human being, an authentic human being who wants to experience life and what resonates with their soul. And if you can think about those elements, it may or may not end up to work out on paper, but if you can think about those elements, real estate specifically is such a cyclical market. An opportunity never goes away. It only switches places. So if this is normally your buyer pool and now this is your buyer pool, they're going to pick yours versus somebody else's. And this is literally your market cycle security of building something more special. So
I see.
I know I'm nerding out about my niche, but it's a different approach.
That's why I want to do this too. It's not nerd at all, because this is the thing that as someone progresses through life, real estate is absolutely an asset class that should be understood and used appropriately. Maybe not necessarily in the exact same direction as you, but they need to understand it. They need to know how it works. And then again, you have a lot of investors who are going to be listening to this podcast. They're going to work with you on some things, right? You probably have other ideas with houses and trees that you want to implement in the future, because trees are beautiful. And like you mentioned, the human element that we do like beautiful trees. Like when I bought one of my houses, I was like, I don't want to be in a new neighborhood. I had tons of my friends, man, you got to buy these new neighborhoods because they're popping up and you're going to get a huge return quickly. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I like big trees. I don't want the small bloop, you know.
Those trees.
I don't want those tiny little things. It's not my, I want a nice tree. A few trees, honestly.
People try to take the human out of real estate a lot. They'll run the numbers. This many houses, X dollars, X, Y, Z, Like, you can look at that as a mass builder, but if you really want it to work, and I think this is one of the biggest differences with stocks, is if you really want it to work, you have to look at a human and their environment and what matters to them and why. What feeling does it give them in order to sell it? It's it's just different. You have to. And I think as the human species progresses, that's going to be more and more and more important than shove me in a box, a vinyl-sided box next to all these other people when we all look the same.
With all these other vinyl-sided boxes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Garage in the front.
Because from all this, you also started creating other ventures and other businesses that started tying into all these ideas as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to talk about that in the next episode?
It is. Okay? Yeah. I'll tell you how creating a media production company changed everything.
Because that was an idea that you were having as you were progressing through this. You're like, wait a minute, if I can get the vision out, how can I get the vision out so if more people can see what I'm trying to do, then that can increase the appeal manually.
I'll tell you how in the next episode.
Perfect. I'll see you guys there.
Thank you for watching From Broke to Woke with Britnie Turner and Jeremy Alexander Newsome. We have loved this journey with you. We want to help you go from broke to woke, understanding your purpose in life and really walking in the fullness of your potential. If you want to connect with us more, go to gforcemastermind.com. You can come on vacations with us. You can connect with us as people. You can find more resources for learning. And if you want to follow us on Instagram, go to gforcemastermind. We'll see you there.